Hey guys, welcome back into the newest episode of Bubblegum Sports Unfiltered. Again, before we get started here, make sure you guys are always asking, how can we help the show and this and that? Make sure you're sharing our Facebook posts. Make sure you're sharing and subscribing our YouTube live videos here and commenting as much as you possibly can. We love to get your feedback and your comments and opinions, even Ben's. So we basically take anybody's opinion on this show. Jeff, welcome back. How was your week of wrestling? We missed you.
It was great. We had a great crowd, a great turnout. It was amazing. Some great matches. Check it out on Underlights Entertainment UTL on YouTube. The whole show is out, and there were some great matches. I mean, it was really, really cool, and it was a very nice turnout up there in Pulaski. So, and we've got two coming up in April, April 4th and April 11th. It's a little bit of a ways away from Green Bay. One's in Mattoon and the other one's in Marinette, which isn't too far away, but some good coming up. We'll get more into that as we get closer to that. But yeah, we had a great time in Pulaski. It was a blast.
It sounded like it was a pretty well attended show. I was watching a couple of those videos on YouTube. I'm like, man, that's a pretty good crowd for for an event like that. And he always puts on a good show.
And they were rowdy. They were rowdy. They were really good.
I even saw Bruno got involved on the mic a few times in there during.
Yeah, we had some issues with the champion. He decided he wasn't going to wrestle because he didn't have an opponent. But Bruno put a stop to that and took care of it. So it was a good show.
Sounds a little like Matt LaFleur, and we'll get to him a little bit later in this show. MJ says hello. MJ, how are you? Good to see you again. All right. Let's get into it. We got some really big news that kind of came out this week that we'll get to in a second, because I want to make sure everyone has time to get in here for this, because this second topic we're going to talk about is going to be filed in the first file folder in the filing cabinet under the title Where Dave Was Right. And we'll get to that in a second, because I've been trying to tell everybody, nobody wants to listen. They're too biased, but that's why we're here, Jeff, to keep them on the straight and narrow. All right. Topic number one, World Baseball Classic starts Friday for those of you that don't know. And if you're wondering what that is, it's very similar in a lot of ways to the Olympics, where there's different pools of teams. And out of each pool, 2 teams make it to the next round. And then from that round, the winners go on and play in a semifinal. Here are the pools. I'm just going to break it down real quick for you. And then I want to kind of get into a little discussion about how you view something like this versus the Olympics that just ended, as far as interest level or what you really prefer and why. We want to hear from the viewers out there with this. Pool A is Puerto Rico, Cuba, Canada, Panama, and there's a qualifying team in there, I guess. I don't know how that part works, but that's going to be played in Puerto Rico. And right away, this is one of the things that I really like about the event is they use 4 different sites in this first round. It's not just played at one place, and I really like that. Pool B is the United States, Mexico, Italy, and Great Britain, who, if you guys remember the last time they had this, where Great Britain was well known for having the worst jerseys of all time. They make the Fanatics uniform debacle look like they were experts out there. Okay. So that's going to be played in Texas. So we have Puerto Rico, Texas. Pool C is Japan, and of course, Japan, Australia, Korea, and Czechia. I think I said that right. I don't know, but they're in there too. And then Pool D is going to be played in Miami, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, Netherlands, and Israel. And basically how this works, guys, is the top 2 teams, like I said, move on to the next round. And I think this is the part that's kind of cool, because the way they do it is, let's say Pool C and D, right? The runner-up in Pool C plays the winner of Pool D, and also the runner-up of Pool D will play the winner of Pool C. So basically, it's an advantage, kind of like a wild card system. It's basically an advantage to win your pool. I really like that. What do you think? Let's start with that part of it, Jeff. What do you think about that?
Let's kind of like a standard way the tournaments are run internationally on different sports. You've got your pool play, which is basically a mini league, and then the winners of the mini league move on to the playoffs, which is the knockout round. And I'm actually one who really likes international sports, so I'm looking forward to this. The only drawback I think for people like me is I like I like soccer, and when they have the World Cup, you get the best players. There's no leagues going on. You get the best players from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of a preseason tournament. It just doesn't, to me, it doesn't seem like Major League Baseball. They're like, yeah, hey, we're doing this thing, and it's going to be kind of cool. But I think they need to really promote it and actually have it sometime during a mid-season. Do it during the mid-season. Do it during the break.
Like
and
an all-star break?
Get back into it and do it. It's just, yeah, as I look at it right now, it's nothing more than a preseason tournament. And yeah, I think it's gonna be really exciting. Just the teams in Miami, that whole group down in Miami is gonna be worth watching.
Do you remember what was it? Do they do every 4 years like Olympics? I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah,
it's every 4 years. And I just remember the finals last year in Miami, or the last time they played it in Miami, was just insane. It's been a long time since anybody's really seen baseball with that kind of energy in the stands. It was just amazing to watch. And they're doing the same thing. So after the first round, then all the rest of the games are played in Miami, which just obviously it makes it easier for travel. Oh, no, I take that back. Texas and Miami in the second round. And then after that, the last 2 rounds are both in Miami. So it should be, the U.S. should get out of their bracket. Let's just say that. Let's just say that, because right out of the get-go, if Italy or Great Britain beats the United States, we can be like our friend. I'm not going to name names, but we can be like our friend and boycott baseball the rest of the year, okay?
Yeah, there's USA and Mexico have, that one's probably the easiest group. But when you get over to the Japan group, and you said Japan, Korea, was it Australia and Czechia? Yeah, so Australia actually has a decent team, but I'm really, it's going to be Japan and Korea coming out of there for sure. And then the Puerto Rican group looks really interesting because you've got some good teams. That whole Puerto Rico and Miami are going to be the 2 groups. If you want good entertainment, good baseball, those are the 2 groups that you want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think, man, how cool would it be? Okay, I'm just gonna Puerto Rico and Cuba out of the Cuba team always is pretty dang good.
They're always good.
Can you imagine those 2? And then you have US, and I mean, really, but after US, I really don't see them having a problem getting out of their bracket unless they phone it in. You know, plus they have the best center fielder in the game in PCA playing for them. I don't know. Mexico maybe would be the second choice, but either way, Pool A and Pool B is going to be, that next round is going to be insane. Can you imagine either Cuba or Puerto Rico playing the United States in the second round? That would be huge for ratings. And then you got to worry about Japan and Korea. They're always amazing in this kind of tournament. Dominican Republic, and then Venezuela is probably going to be the other. You never know, though. While I took my eyes off the keyboard, I have 1,005 messages here. So let's try everyone's saying hi to each other. Deani says hi, Jeff. Hi, MJ. Hi, Ben. Everyone gets a hello. And then Ben saying hello back. Deani says Puerto Rico. And then they're having a fight over who's got the #1 badge in the chat. So keep that up. I can't even read all these now. Yeah, somebody stole a badge back and they're wondering how to get it back. So I want to know, from you guys in the crowd, how much, let's say, for instance, you're not a huge baseball fan in the regular season, Major League Baseball. Would you still watch something like this? And then also I want to know from you guys how it compares to your expectation or watch level of the Olympics. For me, I like it more because for me, the Olympics are too watered down nowadays. I hate to say it like that. You still have your traditional events, but they've added so many weird events. I feel like almost anybody can make the Olympics nowadays. I don't know if you feel any differently than that, but there's some really weird events.
They had breakdancing in the last Olympics, which come on. But I think the Olympics has more prestige than some of these international, like this tournament. I think more people paid attention to the Olympic baseball when it was an Olympic sport, and it got really decent ratings. I don't know if it's back. for the next Olympics in 2028. I don't know if baseball was one of the teams because they brought in football. Each host country can bring in a couple of sports as demo sports, but baseball has already been in Olympics, so I don't know if they can bring that back. So I don't know if it's back or not, to tell you the truth. But I like international competition. It brings something different. It's something you don't see every day. Four Nations, I keep going back to it. The Four Nations hockey tournament last year that the NHL put on was absolutely phenomenal. And early word is that they're going to do it again next year, but they're actually adding another team. So it'll be a 5-nation tournament. So, and it was exciting. It was right from the get-go. There was, 9 seconds into the USA-Canada match, there was a fight. So it meant something. I hope that's what this baseball tournament does. I hope these players get into it. I know the fans do. International fans are crazy.
Yeah.
If you ever watched a Japan League game or a Korean League game or any of those games, Mexico, they have Mexican games on TV, and oh my God, those fans are nuts. There's drumming and light flares, and it's just absolutely crazy through the whole 9 innings. Whereas American fans cheer when something happens. These guys cheer at everything. I mean, and it's just nonstop. So it's a whole different atmosphere, and I enjoy it. I think it's cool.
It's no coincidence if you really stop and think about why they picked Miami as the semifinal and the final location, close to Puerto Rico, close to Cuba. It's right there. So really, no matter where they're coming from, the fans can travel to the event if they really want to. And it's the most, up until you saw the World Baseball Classic there last time, you didn't realize they could sell that stadium out, and how cool it feels in that stadium when they sell it out, which they never will do for the Florida Marlins or the Miami Marlins now. I don't know. I'm pretty excited. The last time around, I thought this event had the most excitement. I think the players really are taking this more serious, but I agree with you. Now, I think doing it at the All-Star break is maybe another issue because that's players only rest, and some of these players really need a rest during that time. What about making it like a January event? Like right after Christmas or something like that?
Yeah, right? Or even, I don't know. See, hockey has a world championship every year, and they do that at the start, towards the end of at the end of the regular season, getting into the playoffs. So you've got a lot of players who aren't involved in the playoffs start playing, and as the teams get eliminated, they go and join the team. So I mean, after the season, I think would be perfect time to do something like that. Only
That's not a bad idea either. Yeah,
the interest is still there. You're coming off the high of the World Series. Like I said, when you move it to the beginning, this just seems like a preseason tournament. It doesn't seem like it's.
I do like your idea. Maybe you move it between. You give the guys a few weeks off because if you played in the World Series, you probably need a week or two, but maybe you move it in between Thanksgiving and Christmas and make it like a holiday, like a meaningful holiday tournament. I think that would be an amazing idea. Let's get to a couple of good comments here. Ben says, now this is a valid comment. He says he likes the World Baseball Classic more because he actually knows some of the players that are playing for some of these other countries. When you're watching, for the most part, that's a good point. When I'm watching the Olympics, I don't know anybody that's playing on some of these weird, not weird countries, but other countries. You don't know any of these athletes. But here, because most of these guys are major leaguers, you recognize these guys.
Well, depending on the sport, hockey, for instance, had pros. Basketball has pros. So you get to know these players that play in the NBA. You can see them play, like Giannis for Greece. You can watch the Greece team, know some players, the French team. Same with hockey. There's so many players in the NHL from other countries. You're watching the international game, the Olympics game, and you're like, oh, I didn't realize he was from that country. It was pretty weird. So
right.
It is, as opposed to some of the other sports where it's strictly amateurs. In curling, I watched curling, but I didn't know anybody who was higher. I have no clue. But when the pros get involved, you know most of the players involved, and I think it's going to be a decent tournament. I really do. I know that a lot of people don't like the fact that their injuries could happen because didn't one year who was the dude from the Mets that got injured?
Lindor? Or is it somebody else?
I thought he was injured in
possibly.
Now,
That is the one negative of doing it. One of the negatives of doing it right before the season is a lot of these guys could not get insured. They had trouble getting insured, so they're not able to play because I think their teams are not willing to risk, what it takes for the.
And that's what MLB has to change. In soccer, I know nobody wants to hear it, but in soccer, you get called up, and you're guaranteed you basically have to play. All the pros that get called up, that's the time to play, and the teams are behind it 100%. Any country you go to, the teams are behind it. They may not like it, but there's an international break. The teams get together, they practice, they play a couple of practice games, whatever. And I think if MLB wants this to be an event, a worldwide event to generate interest, they need the best players available. Teams have to release those players. They have to make sure the injuries are covered, make it part of their contract. Next collective bargaining agreement, when all this stuff is going to come up, they need to make that. If they want to make this event possible and make it as big as it can, they need to make some changes and say, hey, these players have to be available when we do this tournament.
Good point. Now let's move on. Let's move on to the big ticket item of the night. And we put this second for a reason, because I wanted everyone to have a chance to be here for this. The NFL Players Association ranks their teams and the facilities and their coaches and stuff like that. They've done that the last, I don't know how many years. So these grades came out, and mind you, these are from the players themselves. So what better place to get these grades from than from the players? So if there's a bad grade, you would think that holds a little water. And there's one topic in particular that I've been telling everybody about. I would have been cautious about extending this person, and everyone said, the homer and everybody said, no, you're crazy, blah, 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 blah. Well, maybe if you don't want to listen to Bubblegum Dave, you'll listen to the players themselves. Jeff, why don't you break down a little bit about what these grades came out to?
Okay, so the Packers dropped 14 spots over last year. They were 7th overall, and they dropped 14 spots to 21 in the course of 1 year.
That's not good.
So, no, and some of the issues were their overall ranking was 21st. They got an A on locker room, A- on the weight room. Food and dining, they got a B+. The training room is C, and the training staff was a C-, which doesn't, if you're a Packer fan, that should not surprise you at all. With the amount of injuries they've had over the years that LaFleur has been involved, well, basically since, I don't know, you can go back to Mike McCarthy too, but it just seems like there is an overabundance every year, more so than any other team. And that has to do with either, their training staff, their facilities, their team doctors. I don't know who it comes down to, but for some reason, the Packers get wrecked every year. So they ranked that training, and they had a comment from a player, anonymous source, that said he doesn't feel confident in the training staff. Sometimes they're not listening to the players, and
that's a big problem.
And they're bringing them back either early or keeping them, too late. Which too late, I can't argue with. I would rather have them 100% than bring them back at 75 or 80. So, but they're not listening to the players was one of the comments. So that was a big issue. And
C, now that C sticks out to me because that is an awfully low grade.
Horrible grade.
Yes, the stadium has been around, but they remodeled it in the early 2000s. So, they should have pretty state-of-the-art facilities there. That is a problem. Either they do, and the trainers are still that bad, which is almost a bigger problem, or the facilities aren't up to par, which is negligence on the Packers' part.
Well, there is a this year they are. I've been reading. They have an upgrade on their training facilities, so that is going over a major overhaul. So we'll see what their grades are next year. But there is right now a major overhaul on the facilities. I don't see anything about the staff. You can have the best facility in the world. If your staff sucks, it doesn't matter what your facilities are. And I think the Packers training staff, I think they suck, to put it mildly, because I go back to the injuries. Just look at the injuries, and that'll tell you all you need to know every year. the treatment of families, they went down from a B to a C plus, and the report on that was is a lot of teams offer daycare services during the games. So, obviously the dad is playing, the wives, the girlfriends want to watch the game, and a lot of teams have daycare services so they can drop their kids off in the stadium. They have an area for them. They get to meet the other kids, play with the other kids. Obviously, this is for young kids, So that was one of the things that
it's surprising that they don't have,
you would think they would.
Especially being in a community like Green Bay, that's a smaller community than a lot of these, big cities, and the fact of not having an owner, you would think, it kind of goes back to the community aspect. It is very surprising. Almost the most surprising thing on here is the no daycare thing, especially when, like you said, a lot of teams do have it. It's not something that's hard to find.
Yeah, it's not it's nothing crazy, really. If you've got, obviously, you've got players with families and kids, and you can't really, for 3 hours, you can't really expect young kids who have no interest in football yet, and to either sit in the box or sit in the stands wherever they're sitting. You can't really expect that. So they either leave them at home or with something, but that should be something easily rectified. They can easily change that. They had their food and dining area went from an A- to a B+, and some of the comments were they didn't really like the food that was offered. They wanted other healthier options. So
they don't have the big city options that some teams probably do. I could see that.
The nutritionist and dietitian, that was the A- to B. So that was one of the things they wanted a different.
That all kind of goes back to the training facilities too. I feel like that's all taking care of your body and your health, and to me, that's alarming. Those two things are, I feel like, some of the more controllable things on this list, which makes it more alarming that the grades in those particular areas, because I kind of view them as one lump, of a grade in a way, because they kind of have to do with the same thing. I view that as a big time problem, honestly. Shocking.
Locker room was one of the few things, I think it's actually the only thing that went up. That and I know they did some remodel last year on the locker room. I don't exactly know what all went involved, but it went from a B to an A.
Okay.
Like I said, the training room dropped the biggest. That was an A- all the way down to a C. So that's
a huge drop. That's 2 full letter grades.
Yeah, and then the training staff, like I said, went down. That was a B to a C. The weight room went down a half grade, A- to an A. Strength coaches were ranked as B. Position coaches were B+. The offensive coordinator was a C. Defensive coordinator was an A-.
Isn't your offensive coordinator your head coach?
I don't think he's a coordinator. I think he's a play caller.
Right now, last season he was neither.
Yeah, definitely. Special teams coordinator, which just baffles me that he even got a B+. That was just crazy. Team travel went down a full grade from an A- to a B-.
Which, a lot of these grades, this is starting to become a trend in this. A lot of these grades, I think that they got the lowest grades and are the most controllable, if you ask me.
Yeah. And this one, I saved the best for last. I know you're all going to like it. Well, we'll just go wait. The team ownership stayed the same at A-. General manager was a B+. That wasn't ranked last year. So we'll do the last one. The head coach dropped a full letter grade from an A- to a B-. And this one, which was crazy, there was only 6 coaches in the NFL that got a B or below.
Wow.
And he was one of 6. And I think, I don't have it in front of me, but the report that I read earlier was that he was actually ranked second lowest in the league. So he's, when you're talking about, I know there was going on during the season, did he lose the locker room? Apparently he did. And why they extended him, and like I said, you can go back to the shows before. I said they should have kept him one more year, let him run out his contract, and then make the decision after this year. But after that playoff farce in Chicago, I said pack your bags, get done, because it's not going to get better. You can't blow a 20 point lead and expect it to get better, and it won't. I don't think.
And guys,
So
we guys and girls, we talked about this. That was kind of a theme we had throughout the season. Jeff is every coach has a bad game, maybe two. I never ever remember a coach blowing, and I put that directly to coaching because that's game management. When you have a lead that big and you blow 3 of them in a short amount of time left in the game in one season, that's coaching. That's directly to coaching. Yes, the players are out there making the plays, but you won't see a team like New England do that 3 times in a year. I promise you that. You won't see a team like Seattle do that 3 times in a year. That is directly coaching. And the Packers' talent level is far too good to have that happen. I think they made a huge, huge mistake extending Matt LaFleur. And I've said that on record, and everyone gave me crap. But I guess you guys have to find out the hard way.
My only thing is and I hate when teams do this. They've got a coach on the hook for 2 or 3 more years, and then they drop him. So now they're paying somebody not to coach. And I think that's a huge waste of money. That's why I said you wait till the end of the contract, unless he would have, had that stellar year where he gets in a deep run in the playoffs.
And then you regret it, and then you regret not extending him. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now though, I'm sitting here and I'm telling you, I regret them extending it because it's not going to get any better. Next year's, they made some moves. They got some new coaches in, but I don't know. They need to do something. There's no way that they're going to have another season like that where they're dropping those huge leads. They had to lead against Dallas. They had to lead against Chicago twice. They had to lead against the Browns, and you could go to a couple more games and they ended up losing them or barely winning those games. And that's been a theme of a Matt LaFleur team is he'll get this lead regardless of how much it is. It just seems like, we got a 2 touchdown lead. We can coast because we can just, and that it always comes back to bite them. And even when they had that decent run in the playoffs on Love's first year, they're blowing out the Cowboys, absolutely blowing them out.
I do remember this too. Yeah.
And all of a sudden the foot comes off the gas. Dallas scores 2 quick touchdowns. And now they're only like 10 points behind and there's still a quarter to play, and it was like, it's just crazy. I'm all for college football and those coaches who just run up the score, and that's what LaFleur has to do. Maybe not to that extent, but he needs to keep the foot on the gas.
We talked about the last game that they lost in the playoffs. The first drive of the second half, when they do draw, and they're 3 and out, right away I knew. I can't remember. Was it you? I was talking to somebody, and I was like, I think they're going to blow it. And that was after the first drive of the second half.
Yeah,
so you just know it's coming, and that's a horrible thing. You should never have that feeling that early. That's still a whole half to go yet.
Yeah. It was just absolutely crazy, and to have him extended, I don't know. I hope I'm wrong as a Packer fan. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he puts together an incredible year next year, but the history doesn't bear that out. I mean, it just shows he's not that guy.
Yeah. Now I want to know. We've had some comments here in the chat here. I've been putting them up on the screen. I want to know: is anything on that list that you guys have heard out there surprise you the most? We've had a couple posts about. I want to highlight them again because they were good posts. Ben said that's what the city and team pride themselves in: hard work, blue collar, integrity. Family-friendly team, no excuse for those ratings, and I think that's a good. And then he was saying Matt LaFleur was both, but he wasn't good at either, which is fair. And MJ says family needs to support each other, especially at home games. Therefore, obviously they don't have an owner, but the ownership group, the front office, needs to help and provide better services for families. To me, that's a no-brainer. How much would that cost them to do? Not
absolutely
much.
Nothing.
Yeah.
You can take a vacant room. That stadium is huge. You got to have a place you can carve out and hire some childcare experts for 8 games a year. How much is that going to cost? It's just absolutely crazy and the Brewers offer it. So it's
do they really? And they don't pay for anything. That should tell you guys how ridiculous that is. The Brewers asked you guys to fix the stadium. They weren't even going to fix their own stadium, but they provide daycare. That's something the Packers will not do or haven't done, which is a travesty. Travesty.
It's.
I just said it twice so I can make a thumbnail and a little clip later. Show business. So out of that list, this is probably going to be towards the end of the show here. I don't know if we're gonna. We'll get the last topic in real quick here. I think we'll touch on it really quickly. But if you had to narrow one thing before we put this second topic to bed, one thing that surprised you the most when you saw those grades, what would you say that was, Jeff?
That actually surprised me the most was actually they had the home field listed as a C+. It wasn't graded last year. It's a new grade. So that kind of was weird because I've always heard, the reports that say the field is great. I don't know what all went into that rating. I don't know if it's actually the playing surface or the stadium in general. If it's a stadium in general and that included, the training room facilities and the locker rooms and stuff like that, maybe
that's what I wonder when I first heard it. Because opposing players always talk about they can't wait to come play here and this and that. I almost wonder if when players are given that, it's just like a test you get in school. They don't explain everything the clearest. And when they see playing facility or playing field, they might correlate that with the overall experience in the stadium, which would include the training facilities and everything like that. And some of those players might not have discerned the difference. I'm curious next year if that grade changes, because I'm sure they're going to explain these again. Now, if that's a low grade a second time in a row, then you might have a problem that we don't know about. Because obviously, what we hear about on the news is obviously they're going to want to make it seem like it's a great facility, and the players that are under contract aren't going to, say negative things about it for the most part. Not until they leave.
Yeah, the coach's grade, that was to be expected. And then the training facilities was to be expected, but the nutritional part of it, that was kind of weird to me because I thought, these teams would have top-notch nutritionalists.
There's really no excuse. That's another one. Again, these are all the most controllable categories that are the easiest to make sure you get a high grade in. You're basically just catering to the players' needs in those categories for the most part and working with them and communicating with them. That's where they did the worst. So that's a little concerning if you ask me. There's definitely some things that the Packers need to take a look at. All right, let's get on. We got about 5 minutes here, Jeff. I don't want to go too long. There were some rule changes in the UFL. Do you want to go over those 4 big ones really quick here?
Yeah, so if you follow the UFL like I do, they added some rule changes. One of the big ones was, they eliminated the tush push. Not that was a big issue in the UFL, I don't think. But one of the ones that I kind of liked, too, actually, no punting anymore inside the opponent's 50. So once you break the halfway part, you have to go for it on 4th down. And that's
kind of like that.
It's going to increase, the offense and the scoring, definitely. I mean, if you turn the ball over inside, shorter field. The other one that they started, and I like this one. Football traditionalists aren't going to like it, but I do. A 4-point field goal. Anything hit beyond 60 yards is 4 points. And I like that because, you see these guys nailing these monster kicks for 3 points. It's like, dude, you should get rewarded for that. And in the UFL they are. And I don't know if you'll ever see that in the NFL, but they didn't, you didn't think you'd see the 2-point conversion either in the NFL. And, that's been around now for a while. The other big rule change, and I like this one too. I guess I like all of them. The other one was 1 foot in bounds, just like college, and I think that's a good rule. 1 foot in bounds.
If the game is tailored to offense, which it basically is, which most sports are, they want to see action, they want to see runs, they want to see points. It makes sense to only get 1 foot down. There's more catches. It's a lot more clear of a call. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, I like that one. So those were the 4-point field goal. Oh, they did do a tweak on the overtime rules. They don't do a traditional overtime where they play the game. They start at the 3 or the 2, and they run for they'll run a play for, you can try to get 2-point conversion. They do that 3 times, so it's best 2 out of 3 for the winner. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know if I really like it. I like games decided on the field. I like the playing of the game, but that's whatever. I guess that one can stay or not. But the other ones, I really like the no punting, the 4-point field goal, 1-foot catch. I like all those. I think those are something that can find their way into the NFL.
Yeah, I mean I feel like a lot of these rules when they get changed, the NFL is basically wanting to see these get tested out.
And,
it's the same principle as you see all the rule changes in baseball. They happen in the minor leagues first.
Yeah.
So Major League Baseball is definitely watching, and I think the NFL is watching these rule changes in the UFL.
Yeah, and it's great to be able to do it through a full season, to see how it plays out through a whole bunch of games instead of doing it in random preseason games, where you're not really getting the full experience. You've got backup players, so you don't know how that's going to work. You're not getting the top quality. Obviously, the UFL isn't the NFL, but basically the competition is equal, so I'm thinking that's a good place to test it out. They have some changes coming up in the CFL too. And if you watch the CFL, aside from some of the different rules, but they have the 1-foot catch too, and that makes it opens the game up so much more, and I think it's a lot more exciting. And like you said,
I'm curious
for offense, and that's
I'm curious. I'm curious to see how these pan out. We'll definitely revisit this topic after we see these implemented. Okay, on our way out here, your son Benny Bayless wants to know before you hop off. He wants a recommendation of what hockey teams he should check out. A team that's fun to watch, cool jerseys, some likable players. What would you recommend to somebody that wants to get into hockey, but obviously there isn't one in the state of Wisconsin, not a NHL team, anyways.
So I've been a Bruins fan forever, since the 70s. So I like the Boston Bruins. I also kind of like the Seattle Kraken, only because I like the name and the mascot and the logo. It's a cool name.
I think that's part of what he's asking. He wants to get some cool merch. I guess if you don't really have a team in your home state, a lot of people do this. If they really get into the sport or are having fun with it, sometimes they will just pick a team they really can relate to a player, or they love the gear or something like that. It's no coincidence why these teams come out with all these alternate jerseys. They want to look cool. They want to attract, attention.
The other team, I like the Blackhawks, which is odd for to like a Chicago team. They always have a pretty decent team.
It's the only winning you've had in your life. That's except for the Packers.
And then teams to stay away from Toronto. They're horrible. They're just absolutely just horrible.
But I heard Toronto, their baseball team has $1-foot-long hot dogs, Anton said.
Yeah, but stay away from the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens. You don't want anything to do with that. The Islanders, New York Islanders, are doing good. They got some decent uniforms too. They got some old school uniforms that are pretty cool. Stay away from the New York Rangers. They're just absolutely horrible.
Frank the Tank from Barstool Sports would argue with you on that. We got to get you and Frank on one time.
With the Rangers?
Yeah.
Yeah, he can blow it. Rangers suck. I hate that team.
He probably would agree with you actually on that.
But yeah, just check out a game, Benny. Just go on ESPN Plus and check out a game one time.
On the way out here, I just have a great idea. We need to get cameras on you and Benny going to a hockey game together, even if it's local, if it's a smaller level hockey, or if you guys do end up going to like a Blackhawks game or something like that, we got to get cameras on you guys. Yep.
Yeah, maybe Bubblegum Sports could, score us some tickets with your connections in Chicago. Maybe you could hook us up to a Blackhawk game.
I'll try and talk to PCA about that. We're good friends, so I'm just kidding.
One last thing. Speaking of hockey, you guys probably all know the USA won the gold medal last week. Canadian fans are just whining and whining and whining. They haven't stopped crying. You can go on Facebook at any time, and it's like, oh, the USA won. It wasn't real hockey because it was 3-on-3 overtime. They failed to mention the fact that they wouldn't have been there in the gold medal game had they not won 2 3-on-3 overtime games. So we'll just leave it at that. And congratulations on both the men and women, both 2-1 winners over Canada, both in overtime. Incredible games. And I still hardly can talk because I was screaming so loud.
I bet you were.
It was amazing. So
awesome. Yeah, what a cool event and cool experience. Because previous to that, obviously it was the 1980 team was all anybody. So anybody that's under, say, 40 years old, they probably that's their only experience to the United States winning a gold medal in hockey.
Yeah, they and it happened on the 46th anniversary of the Miracle on Ice.
Isn't that crazy?
Or the 40th anniversary, something like that. So I mean, that was crazy, and it was incredible. And we've come close a couple of times. We just couldn't get over the hump, and now they've had the World Juniors. They lost it this year, but they were back-to-back World Juniors champions. They were the World champions last year. They won it in overtime, and Olympic champions this year. Check it out. It's hockey is a fun sport. So like I said, check out the Gamblers if you want to see live hockey. Hockey live is a lot different than hockey on TV.
It is.
You got to see it live.
You learn a lot more about the rules and stuff like that when you're watching it live, especially if you go with a buddy or a group that a couple of the guys are more hockey experts, and you just learn about offsides and all that kind of stuff. But once you figure out the rules, it's a lot more enjoyable to watch on TV. So on that note, now next week I have a big announcement coming up. I have a big announcement for the brand, for Bubblegum Sports, that I'll talk more about next week. So you're not going to want to miss that. And we'll get some more details out on that. Last question of the night. Your number one fan says, what jersey do you have on, Jeff? And then we're going to head out.
This is the Colorado Mammoth. It's a National Lacrosse League. And they're the original Mammoth. And then the Utah hockey team decided they liked the name, so they stole it. But Colorado Mammoth has been around a long time. They won last night 16-14 over the San Diego Seals. It was an amazing game. Check that out.
Good defense, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's a great defensive league. But check it out. Check out the National Lacrosse League on ESPN Plus. See some great action. A lot of fights, a lot of action.
On the Yocho. Okay, well, on that note, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. We had a good group tonight. A lot of the the old consistent people were back tonight, so it was good to see. We're still waiting for Anton. Somebody has to find out where that young man is. I think Ben still has him locked up somewhere. So one of these days, that's my wish for the new year, is that we find Anton at some point in 2026. You guys have a good week. Jeff, take care. We'll talk to you soon.
See you guys. Have a great week.